I'm in pursuit of making giving a everyday habit.
Hello and welcome to In Pursuit Of. I have a new guest today, Anoj Viswanathan, co-founder of Milap, and he's here sitting with me today. Welcome, Anoj.
Thank you for having me here.
So, Anoj, tell me, how do you chase this pursuit of yours?
Well, I started Milap in 2010 as a platform where people can raise money for the causes that they care for. These could be needs very personal to them, like medical emergencies of loved ones, as well as causes that support the larger community, like NGOs raising money for various social causes, etc. And the platform takes a crowdfunding approach, which means the donations, 99% of the contributions essentially come from everyday individuals, people like you and me. And people can contribute as small as 1 rupee, so to speak. And that's essentially how we envisaged Milap, a platform that democratizes, decentralizes giving.
That's wonderful. Give me a couple of examples of the campaigns that have run on Milap.
Sure. A typical example would be, let's say, somebody needing money for, let's say, a medical emergency, right? And when I say medical emergency, I'm talking about a scenario not just of somebody who's extremely poor, but it could be anyone. It could be a middle-class person who's been diagnosed of cancer, and they need money to, pay for the treatment. The insurance has run out, right? Because most of us have insurances that are not, exhaustive, so to speak, and they need money to sort of, raise for the treatment. And that's when they use a platform like Milap. They come, they share their story, they talk about how much they require. They provide some supporting documents to ensure that their ask is genuine. And then it gets shared to the entire internet, so to speak. It starts with people that they know of, and eventually people who also come to Milap on a daily basis, right? And people start contributing. The good thing about something like this is you're not overwhelmed by having to contribute the entire amount. You could contribute what you wish to. And at the same time, you're able to see what other people are doing. So there is a sense of
Camaraderie,
as well as a certain, positivity, saying that, yes, this person would sort of get that intended amount. So people not only contribute, but also share it with others in the pursuit of, ensuring that the fundraiser is successful.
we need our youthful audience and their questions to take our mission of sharing stories and journeys to everyone. So please do write in with your questions and share them with us. Today, Anita is going to share certain questions from our audience with our guest.
Hello, sir. My question is, does Milap offers any guidance or support to first-time fundraisers?
Yes, in fact, most people who raise money on Milap are raising for the first time. Every fundraiser has a dedicated relationship manager. So we tell them how to use social media, how to use the videos that we provide, how to craft the story, how to keep donors updated of the progress, and many other things. In some cases, if there are non-profits, we talk about how we could do collabs together on social media so that it gets more visibility to a larger audience and so on.
Thank you, sir.
So what is successful? I mean, do fundraisers always manage to get the full amount that they have asked for? Or is a 60% successful or 90%?
You could look at success purely from the numbers perspective, saying that somebody has started a fundraiser with a X amount as a requirement. How much are they able to raise? Sure. Now, if we were to look at it from that perspective, the median fundraiser, right, I'm talking about, the 50th percentile, raises around 40% of the need. So that's on the numbers side. The thing that we focus on measuring is essentially what we call as whether the intended purpose has been met or not. And that's something that we tell people who are raising money, that crowdfunding shouldn't be the only avenue for you to sort of achieve your intended purpose. And when we look at it from that perspective, the purpose being met is over 90%. So 90% of the people who come and start a fundraiser with an intent, whether it is to raise money for their medical needs or let's say education purpose or even an NGO looking to execute a project, 90% of them actually sort of complete what they have intended for. And more so for nonprofits is that it gives them that credibility that their story is out there on the internet and then there are people contributing. That sort of provides them that credibility to sort of tap into other resources, whether it's their sort of extended closed donor networks. This sort of acts as a sort of an outreach channel for them. Hey, look, we exist. Hey, there is already this support. And then there is still this balance that we would want, somebody to come in and chip.
So if I was to raise a certain amount of money, how does Milap earn from that?
Until 2020, we had a very simple model, which is essentially we charge a percentage of the funds that you raise. So let's say you raise 100 rupees, we charge 5% on it. So we give you 95. And that was the model till COVID hit, right? When the first wave of COVID happened, we took a stance that saying that, look, people are raising money for issues that are larger than their own, right? Because the first COVID wave, as you know, was more about lockdown and livelihoods and so on, right? It was not so much about the healthcare crisis that we saw in the second wave, right? So whenever there are natural disasters, we make the platform free. So when the first COVID wave hit, we said that we'll make the platform free so that people can raise. So whatever they raise minus the small payment gateway processing fees, which is like 0.5 to 1%, right, goes directly to the beneficiaries. And we launched that. And it was interesting because April 2020, that month was the most interesting month in Milap. So we did the highest amount of fundraising until then in our 10 years of existence. And we also had the biggest negative bottom line ever because, one of the things about fundraising platforms is as the traffic grows, as the number of user goes, so would your cost around tech infrastructure. And you want to ensure that your tech infrastructure supports that. So we were essentially burning money, whatever we had essentially earned over the period of time. So we asked ourselves, hey, what do we do now? Because we'll go out of business very quickly. Option one was, hey, we go back to people and say, hey, we're going to, sort of charge a fee. And I looked at it and I said, that's not going to happen. And then somebody from the team say, why don't we just ask people, hey, if they want to contribute towards Milap as a tip, they could do so. Anyway, we are at zero right now. So, might as well ask and see what happens.
No harm in asking.
And 4 months later, by August, we said, hey, you know what? This is how we are going to sort of pursue the business.
Receptive.
Very, very receptive, right? So, today almost 2/3 of them add a tip when they are contributing on Milap.
Wow.
It could be a rupee, it could be a percentage of the donation. This makes much more sense because now you are letting the user determine what is the value of your service as opposed to you trying to go and justify to them that this is the value that you have to pay for. And that removed a lot of friction in the minds of people who were raising money. Because when people are raising money, right, they're raising money in terms of emergencies or not-for-profits with very limited budgets, etc. We saw that even, beneficiaries or the people who were raising money wanted to leave a tip for us. For the last, I think, 4.5 years or so, we call it the free fundraising platform because that's much easier to understand.
That's really remarkable, because even that 5%, and I was just thinking when I was asking you about the RWA that what would they say? Oh no, they charge 5%. Oh no, they charge 2%. True. Just for that 5 and 2%, there would be an argument.
True. True.
Anuj, tell me about some campaign which makes you say, this is why we do this.
Let me tell one of the most recent ones. I'm not going to share the name because it's very famous per se, but I would tell you the background story. So I think in around 2022 April or thereabouts, there was a fundraiser by somebody, by an armed forces martyr, so to speak. The family raised some money and so on and so forth for the livelihood. And then they raised more than what they wanted. And they came to us and I said, okay, we have raised more than what we wanted. We want this to be contributed to some other deserving cause, right? And they said preferably sports, because the martyr was a passionate sports lover. And through a mutual contact of theirs, there was this sports person who was identified just at that time in Jammu and Kashmir, para athlete as a prodigy. And they said, okay, we've identified this person, but there's no sponsor as such. The family consented, and then we got to work. It's Jammu and Kashmir, so transfers have to be, extra sensitive, extra, you have to vet for everything. And the parents didn't have the bank account. The sports centers were essentially saying that no, pay the vendors and so on, right? So every transfer of money towards that person's coaching needs, like traveling, accommodation, or day-to-day nutrition, etc., we were handling it. It was a sizable sum, like 4-5 lakhs or whatever, so to speak, right? Which actually ensured that the training essentially happened and so on, right? Fast forward 2 years later, the person essentially won a medal for India at Paralympics, right? And I can talk about so many such instances where crowdfunding has acted as an initial validation for somebody, right? When the visibility comes in, of course, then more people come in to support, which is a great thing. CSR comes in, and federations come in, and so on. So that's one of the, very close to our heart kind of stories per se. There have been a lot of medical needs that we have supported. Again, scenarios where people have given up, or the treatments are sort of innovative but would require long-term, sort of support.
So how do you ensure that the person on the other side, the beneficiary, is true to their word? What are the checks and the point?
If you were to look at our fundraisers per se, around 80% of our fundraisers are essentially for medical needs, right? And another 10 to 12% is for not-for-profits, right? So when it comes to medical needs, so to speak, it's for an intended purpose, which is essentially the person has been diagnosed of a certain ailment or a certain need, and then there is a treatment, and the treatment is going to cost a certain amount as estimated, and the treatment is going to happen in a so-and-so sort of a facility, hospital, etc. What we do is, whenever such a request comes, within 24 hours, we verify 3 things. Does the intended person exist? Does the intended need exist? Right? And will the money raised go towards the intended purpose? Because all 3 are equally important, right? And that's the piece that we have over the years sort of built rigorously per se, by working, coordinating with hospitals, ensuring that our structure, we take the best practices from how insurance processes claims, versus how that can be adapted to crowdfunding and so on, which is verification and ensuring utilization, so to speak. And this could again apply to other things, like, for example, let's say education needs, somebody is going to pursue education. It's a similar sort of a pattern. With NGOs, we see that whether the money goes to that particular program, it's much slightly easier because they have to furnish their audited statements and so on. And beyond a certain amount that we transfer, we say, you have to furnish the statements that they, give an underwriting. But at the same time, not let the process determine the speed or the simplicity. We did not want a model where we say, hey, we will verify everything, we'll be comfortable with that, and then we will allow you to fundraise, because then, we are no different from any other sort of methods by which people could get money from. Our default belief is, hey, we trust you. So as soon as you start the fundraiser, you can start raising money, but until we finish these processes, you can't withdraw that money.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for watching. I will continue my conversation with Anoj, and keep watching. Do remember to subscribe to our channel.